Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be diving back into the old world, and we are going to be building a 2,000 point Dwarf melee list. Now this list is not going to have any ranged units whatsoever. We're going to be pure melee, pure hatred, and pure grudges all the way. So some of you guys might be wondering, well, Dwarf melee, that can't be good, right? Dwarves are first and foremost an army that needs shooting. You need a good cannon in the backfield to be successful dwarves. Well, I have news for some of you guys. I actually, after playing some games in the very beginning of the edition, or new, I guess you could say the release of Old World, and some recent games with ranged units, I have to say I don't think that ranged units are actually the answer to the dwarf's woes. I think it's the melee builds. And I actually do think that there's some obviously great ranged units in the Dwarf army, and you can build a very effective balanced Dwarf army. But I think in the current climate of the game, the tools that we have to deal with things like dragons and stuff like that are just absolutely non-existent. So what do you got to do instead? Well, you have to go into combat with big units of guys that you know are not going to be completely destroyed, because that's how the game is won. You have to destroy enemy units, you have to take their flags, beat them in combat, right? Destroy them utterly. That's how you earn victory points in Old World. So this list is going to revolve around making it as hard as possible to kill, while also beating the enemy down in combat resolution every single turn. Alright, so what is going to be into the build, and what do we have to overcome as far as the challenges of being a dwarf melee army? Well, the first thing is dwarfs are slow, right? So we need to find a way around that. The second thing is dwarfs are durable, but there's a lot of things out there that can still kill them, especially over the course of a 6-turn game, and whittle them down to nothing. And the units are not cheap. They're not super expensive, but they're also not cheap. So your opponent's going to get a lot of victory points for killing your dwarf units. So how do you build a dwarf melee list that is actually going to be successful and has the tools not only to destroy enemy units, but also survive? And I think there's one simple answer to that, and the whole list is going to revolve around this. And that is the Anvil of Doom. Now, most tournaments have limited units like the Anvil of Doom and dragons and stuff to 1 per army. This list, we're going to go ahead and go with 2 Anvils of Doom, but if your tournament is not allowing that, you can easily go with a Dwarf King instead of one of the Anvils. And that's totally fine as well, right? Or you could go with a Dwarf Thane and basically kit him out just like a Dwarf King. It's really your choice, but, well, I guess really, if you think about it, a Dwarf King is still going to be limited. So if your tournament is limiting those kind of characters to 1 per army, like the, 1999 points plus 1 formula, then unfortunately you're just going to have to go with the Thane, but Thanes are still good, right? And you could even just go with another melee unit altogether if you wanted to. But in this video, we're going to go with the double Anvil. Of course, if you need to make changes to your own list, you can do so fairly easily and still be a pretty effective army. So we have the Anvil of Doom. It costs 235 points base. We are going to be adding some runes to it, though, to make it even better at negating things like magic, and just making it a better unit in general to be able to survive. It's pretty durable on its own, though. Unless an opponent is bringing a lot of artillery, these things aren't going to die easily, but we are going to just put a few runes on it anyway, because they're very cheap runes. So we have our 2 Anvils of Doom. And in my opinion, it's the best unit in the entire army book, hands down. It just does so much for your army. It covers a lot of the weaknesses that dwarfs have, and especially, magic resistance. It's really good at negating magic. It, can dispel out to 24 inches at a level 3. And then, of course, you can give it extra runes to, kind of spell break things, automatically dispel and stuff like that. So we are going to go with the double Anvil of Doom, and we're going to go with the Thane. And the Thane has the Battle Standard Bearer, and that's going to be 85 points base. However, you know, we are going to add some extra runes to them to make them a little bit more defensive. Because again, we want to negate as many points as your opponent possibly can get out of your army. And you might still lose stuff, so do be prepared for that. But it's not going to be a ton of stuff. And at the very least, you're going to be coming out of it with a tie or a minor victory. And those are the hardest matchups, right? So that is the idea behind this build. Now, for the core choices, there's really only one choice we can have here, and that is Dwarf Warriors. Dwarf Warriors are a very durable unit for their cost, and we are going to equip them with both great weapons and shields so they can use their shield wall if they need to, or we can go in with the great weapons if we have a flank or something like that, which is going to be the ideal situation. And basically this unit is going to come on a flank. And what I like about Dwarf Warriors is they're really good at tackling units like chariots, because they can beat a chariot in combat resolution, no problem. They do have, of course, the ranks, the close order, and maybe they don't get their attacks. You know, maybe. Depends on how lucky your opponent is with and what kind of chariot it is. But, you know, what they can do for you is they can make sure that that chariot loses combat resolution. And then after that, the chariot will, of course, have to either run away or give ground, and essentially it's eventually going to die. Without the charge, chariots are almost useless, in my opinion. Okay, so we're going to have the 2 units of Dwarf Warriors, and what we want to do with this is we want to get to the minimum 500. We don't want to go over that. I don't see it really as a tax because these units are pretty good, but we also don't want to just fill our whole army with Dwarf Warriors, right? Because they are a little bit easier to kill than the other units in our army are going to be. So our first unit is going to have 23 Dwarf Warriors. We're going to give them a full command. And a full command is 15 points for Dwarf Warriors. So we're going to keep it at that. Full command. I should put full command, not just command here. So that means the musician, we have the veteran, and we have the standard bearer. We're going to give them great weapons, because of course we want these guys to punch hard when they get the chance to, and we're also going to give them shields because if they do get charged, they have a realistic chance of just not breaking because of the shield wall ability, right? They can just give ground instead. Excuse me. So we have and shields. Now that is going to be 230 for the warriors, 15 for the full command, and that is going to come out to 245. And that's pretty reasonable for a 23 warrior strong block. You could either run these in 3 rows of 7. You can of course run them in deeper ranks, but there's really not a point in this edition to run them in deeper ranks because the maximum you're going to get is +2. So you might as well just run them in 3 units of, 7, or, 2 units of 8, and the back rank has 7 models, and that's it. So we're going to keep that. And then the other one is going to be a 24-man unit. So it's going to be the same exact thing. I'm just going to copy and paste this, but we're going to have a 24-man unit instead. And that is going to bring us to 500 points. Now, of course, if you really wanted to just, if you have OCD, like some people I know, and you wanted to go with the straight 25, you could do that, but, honestly, there's not much of a point to it. Again, at the end of the day, this unit is not going to be taking the brunt of your opponent's army. It's going to be hanging out in the wings, dealing with the lighter units that could encircle you and flank you, and it's going to be going after those types of units. It's not necessarily going to be, taking the enemy head on. So we have 2 units of those. Now, we do have our special choice as well, and of course, like I stated earlier, or maybe I didn't, but basically we're going to be using Ironbreakers. Sorry, if I didn't say we're using Ironbreakers yet, we are going to use Ironbreakers because they are awesome. They're easily one of the best units in the army book as well. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, why not Hammerers, right? Hammerers get 2 attacks apiece when they get charged. They get a bonus initiative, but the initiative really doesn't matter unless there's some sort of, effect on the enemy where they always strike last or something like that. But even then, if they're charging you, the initiative is really not going to help you that much. They would have to be really, really slow and make a really low charge roll to actually strike last against your hammers. hammers do a lot of damage. There's no doubt about that. But the problem with hammers is they have heavy armor. They don't have full plate. So they're a little bit vulnerable to things like ranged fire and spells. And your opponent, if they're running a level 4 wizard, they're just going to nuke your hammers down with spells and you're going to die. So, oh, and they're also more expensive than Ironbreakers. So I like to use Ironbreakers, pure and simple. They're more durable, and they can hold for longer, but they still get that benefit of the Grommeral weapons, so they're still getting -1 AP on Strength 4 attacks and Weapon Skill 5, which is really good. So we're going to use 20 Ironbreakers with full command. And that's it. That's all you have to put on them. Now, we may add in the Cinder Blast bombs later. I think they're fantastic for stand and shoot reactions, but we don't really need it. It is 15 points, so we'll just save that to the end. If we have some extra points for it, we'll throw it on. But 20 Ironbreakers with full command. The full command is, I believe, 21 points, so that is going to be 20 Ironbreakers. They're 15 points a model, which again is cheaper than Hammer, so they're already doing pretty good here. So we have 15 times 20. It's going to bring us up to 300, which is a pretty standard cost for a special unit. And that is going to actually bring us to 340. No, excuse me. Sorry. I'm having a bit of a problem with the calculator. It's kind of embarrassing because what's wrong with this thing? It's like up in the 4,000s. Okay, anyway. So it's going to be 15 times 20. And then, okay, so it's 321. That's why I thought it was giving me some weird number. So 321 points, and that's a pretty durable unit. That's going to be a very hard unit for your opponent to deal with, especially with the Anvils of Doom, possibly giving them +1 armor, but more importantly, allowing them to reroll armor saves. They have a 3+ armor save base with their shields. That is going to be absolutely insane to try to basically get past. So things like arrows going against toughness 4, you're rarely going to have an Ironbreaker die to an arrow. Crossbows, you're wounding on 4s, you're probably hitting on, again, mostly going to be 4s or 5s in most cases for most armies. Your AP nothing, unless you get a lucky armor bane. I'm getting a 3+ rerollable armor save against you with the Anvil of Doom. And you only need a 4 to cast that ability to reroll armor saves. And of course, if you get a 7 or an 8, I can't remember, I think it's a 7, then you are, of course, allowed to also get +1 armor on top of that. So we have 20 Ironbreakers, 2 units of these guys, full command. And in the games I've played, people have not been able to kill them. With the support, of course, of the Anvil of Dooms. I think in a lot of builds, people might, not run them with the Anvil, and yeah, they could die by the end of the game. But with an Anvil of Doom allowing them to reroll armor, they're getting a 6-up ward on top of that. And there's other buffs you can also throw on them as well, from things like, the Master Rune of Grungy, which is a standard that gives you a 5+ ward save. It gets a little ridiculous. So 20 Ironbreakers full command. Now, this build is already pretty tough to crack, but it has one major flaw. And that is, it's still slow. Even with the extra movement that can be granted by the double Anvil of Doom, it's only moving a maximum of 12 inches a turn, so which is pretty good for dwarves, right? But again, the issue with that is you can get up there, but there's nothing stopping your opponent from, if they're fast enough, from just going around you or going on top of you. And at that point, it's just a stalemate, right? You can't kill them, they can't kill you, and you end up killing nothing and you end up drawing. So really, this list is missing the winning element. What wins the game? And there's only one thing that can do that, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, I'm talking about a unit that can break the stalemate very easily. Miners. We are going to have a unit of 20 miners. Now, we don't need 20 miners. We'll see how many points we have left here, but we're going to take miners. We're going to take a full command with the miners, and we're also going to take the steam drill. The steam drill allows us to re-roll the ambush roll. So by the way, guys, miners can ambush, which means they can come in on the board edges. And if you guys play 40k, it's kind of like putting a unit in strategic reserve. They come in on a 4+ from turn 2 onward. And mostly people don't want to use ambush because it's so swingy. You know, a 4+, you could be stuck there the whole game and just have to come in on turn 5 automatically. But the miners get to re-roll it. So if you don't want to come in on turn 2, if it's too soon and you roll 4+ and you get it, the steam drill allows you to actually re-roll it so they don't have to come in that turn if you fail it. On the other hand, if you really want to come in, you get a 4+ re-rollable to come in. So I think the steam drill is definitely worth the 20 points. Also, it's really a good weapon. It's basically strength +3, and I think it has AP3 as well. So it's one of those weapons that can kind of crack through monsters a little bit. It's actually really good. So, you know, your champion, I think, has 2 attacks. It's not that many attacks or whatever, but any wound in this game is pretty good. So if you can get like behind a Gorgon, or you can get behind a dragon or something like that and be wounding it on a 4+, there's a decent chance you're going to bust right through the armor and force a ward save on your opponent. It's not bad, right? So we're going to go with the full command. And steam drill. So 20 miners, they're actually only 12 points apiece. They're pretty cheap for an ambushing unit. Ambush, you kind of pay a premium for it, but they're only 12 points. So we're going to go, that's going to bring us up to 240. Full command is, I believe they pay 18 points for their command. So plus 18, and then plus 20. I believe that brings us up to 278. Let me just double check here. Yep, brings us up to exactly 278 points. Okay, so that is under our 1,000-point limit, I believe. I'll do a quick math hammer. If we need to reduce the amount of miners, we can do that. We can also reduce the amount of Ironbreakers, you know, to fit our characters in. So that's not too big of a deal. So let's just check to make sure we're under this limit. 321 times 2 equals, okay, 642 plus 278. Okay, we're at 920, so we are under, so we're good. So we don't need to worry about anything there. Now, normally, you know, some people might say, oh, why don't you throw a gyrocopter in there? Remember, guys, no range units. And I fully count the gyrocopter as a range unit. So we're at 920 here. Just going to keep it up here. We have our Dwarf Warriors, 245, plus, hold on one second, we have 920 plus 500, because we're exactly at 500 with our Dwarf Warriors there. We're at 1420, and 2 Anvils of Doom, plus 235, plus 235, plus 85. 1975. Okay, so this is actually fine because we are going to get rid of a few things here and there to kind of clean up the list a little bit, and then we're going to be able to fit in our characters. So we do have a Thane that is going to go in one of our Ironbreaker units. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to pop off 1 Ironbreaker here. Just going to go, going to be 19 in this unit, and which is totally fine. That's pretty standard. So we're going to subtract 15 points equals 1960. So we're going to have a little more points for runes and stuff like that. Okay. And maybe do we need 20 miners? Maybe we can get away with 15 miners now I think about it. Let's go 15 miners, and that's going to be sorry, I had to reduce the cost of the Ironbreakers. So we'll just remember 1960 for a second. And we're going to subtract about 60 points worth of miners. So that's going to be 218. So 1960 minus 60 is going to be 1900. So that's pretty good. We have 1900 points, so we have 100 points to spend on runes and stuff like that. And basically this is going to be the idea of the list, right? And I'll kind of go into it more. But we have 4 big blocks of infantry that are going to be pretty difficult for your opponent to kill, if not impossible, especially the Ironbreakers, with the support of the Anvil of Dooms here. And we also have Thane to prevent people from, panicking and falling back and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, it's a good move to use the Master Rune of Balance. So I really like the Master Rune of Balance. It really helps with magic resistance. So if you look in the Talisman runes, you will find the Master Rune of Balance. It's 35 points. You can put it on an Anvil of Doom. Once per turn, the bearer of the Master Rune of Balance may use it when attempting a Wizardly Dispel. If they do so, roll an extra d6 when making the Dispel and discard the lowest result. This is really good because it kind of prevents you from getting that catastrophic, outclassed in the art result. So it kind of saves you in that way, and it also helps you just, basically be able to dispel more frequently. So even level 4 enemy wizards are going to be a little bit hard pressed at least, to cast their magic. And I know that there's a lot of other items that can buff their magic as well and stuff like that, and they can re-roll their results. But if you're able to, roll an extra dice, take out the lowest, it's going to stop some spells, which is what we want. And whatever we don't stop is going to be stopped with something else that I really like, which I will go into. So our Anvil of Doom, we're going to put it on the non-general Anvil of Doom. And the reason for this is because your opponent gets extra points, I think, for killing the general of the army. So we're just going to say that basically the other Anvil of Doom that's not our general is going to be the one with the Master Rune of Balance. So we'll just put it, this will be our general, and this one will be Master Rune of Balance with Master Rune Balance. So it gives us a little bit more to work with as far as our magic dispelling ability. That's going to bring us up to 270. So we are going to now be at 1935. We have 65 more points left to spend. In my opinion, it is a really good idea to also have a Rune of Spellbreaking. Basically, it's for those times when your opponent rolls really high but doesn't quite get that irresistible force, doesn't quite roll that double 6, and you can just break that spell automatically. So you have the Rune of Spellbreaking. That brings us up to 295. And we're still under the amount of points and runes that we can have, because we can have up to 100 points here. So it's no big deal. So we're going to add plus 25 to here. That gives us 40 points to work with. So now it's just about adding some defensive runes as needed. I think the Cinderblast bombs are a nice idea, but, we don't really have the points for it. If we really wanted to, guys, we could actually just drop another Ironbreaker in each unit, and then we could add the Cinderblast bombs. But it's really up to you guys what you want. One more Ironbreaker or the Cinderblast bombs. We might actually do that, but let's go back up here with the runes really quick. Again, we do have 40 left. So what's a good rune to purchase for our guys? I actually think one of the best runes for the cheapest cost is the Rune of the Furnace. Gives you a 3+ ward save against any wounds suffered that were caused by an attack that has a flaming attack special rule. There's a lot of weapons out there, a lot of abilities that have flaming attacks. So if you are able to get a 3+ ward save against that, it's fantastic. So there's really no point in not having it. We're going to give our Anvil of Doom the Rune of the Furnace. That's going to bring it up to 240. That's our general. So it makes it a little bit harder to kill. And then, of course, this guy, the other Anvil of Doom, we'll just give him a Rune of the Furnace as well. Now, the cool thing is, you might be thinking, oh, you can't have 2 Runes of the Furnace on the same model. But remember, it's the rule of 3. So as long as you have other runes in the same category on that item, inscribed on that item, it counts as a different item. So we have the Master Rune of Balance, Rune of the Furnace, and Rune of Spellbreaking. That is a different item than just a Rune of the Furnace. Okay, so there we go. Rune of the Furnaces, We got plus 10. So we have 30 points left. Now, at this point, it's really up to you. I like to give the Thane a little bit of something to make him a little bit more durable. So let's take a look at what we can give the Thane. Now, we can give him an Oath Stone for 15 points. That makes his unit immune to panic checks. But again, are they really going to be able to kill 25% of your unit in a single shooting attack with all the rerolls you're getting and all the durability? Maybe, but probably not. And then you, of course, have Leadership 9 to back that up. And if you do fail a panic check, as long as you're not below 50%, you just give ground, which is not that big of a deal. And, well, I mean, basically, I just don't think it's really worth that much, especially if you don't have a Lord that is going to be able to, you know, really issue challenges and stuff like that. So we're not going to use that. We're going to give him something that helps his durability for 30 points. And I think one of the best runes for this is simply the Rune of Preservation. Now, the Rune of Preservation, and we will give him probably a Rune of Stone or something like that as well. Well, no, we probably won't give him a Rune of Stone. We'll probably give him, Rune of the Furnace or something. Oh, actually, never mind. I forgot we can't do that. But Rune of Preservation is an armor rune. A model wearing this rune is immune to Killing Blow and multiple wounds. So that's really good, and that can really save him from a lot of damage. So that's an idea, but because we have 30 points left, we can also give him the Rune of Fortitude, which gives him +1 toughness. So he has toughness 6, which is pretty good as well. So it just depends what we want to do here. For 5 points, I think we can also give him the Rune of Speed, +1 initiative. Not great. Yeah, so I think we probably just give him... Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm sorry. We're going to give him the Rune of Warding. I forgot about this little bad boy. So Rune of Warding is a single use, but it allows you to get a 2+ ward save against a single wound. Right? So we're going to give him the Rune of Warding, and we're going to probably give him a shield as well. And probably the Rune of the Furnace. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Watch this. With BSB, Rune of Shielding, and Rune of the Furnace. Remember, as long as it's a different combination, it's okay. So he's getting a 3+ ward save against all flaming attacks, and once per game, he can get a 2+ ward save against something. Now, on top of that, we want to give him... He has full plate by himself, but I forgot he doesn't have a shield. So this is going to be 20 plus 25, so that's going to be 25 points together, and then I believe that gives us enough for a shield, which is 4 points, I believe. So let's check that real quick. Just want to make sure, because we don't want to go over. Here we go. Shield. Oh, 2 points. Okay, the shield is 2 points, so maybe we'll have some maybe we'll have some points left over for something else. So with BSB, shield, Rune of Shielding, and Rune of the Furnace. So that's going to be 85 plus 25, so that's going to be 110, and then it's going to be 2 points for the shield, so 112. So we are up plus 25 plus 2. We have 3 points left. What can we possibly give something? Let's see if there's a 3-point item somewhere. Maybe we can find something like that. So no more, the Thane can't take any more 3-point items. The Anvil of Doom can't. That might be it. Maybe we can take like a 3-point, like something on somebody. Let's see. Dwarf Warriors. No, we already upgraded them as much as we can. So I guess that leaves us with Ironbreakers. Can they take anything for like a couple points? Nope. So it looks like we're just down 3 points. That's okay. It's not a big deal or anything. What about miners? Well, the entire unit... Okay, so you can't take blasting charges because the entire unit has to take it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's fine. So we have a list here that's 1997. We don't have any rare, so total 1997. Now, remember what I said earlier. We can, in fact, get rid of an Ironbreaker in each unit and put the Cinder Blast Bombs in. Now, the thing about the Cinder Blast Bombs, they're really good, and I really like the Cinder Blast Bombs. Because what they basically do is they're range 8, but when you're making a stand and shoot attack, it doesn't matter if they're out of your range, you can still make it. At least my reading of the rules. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure when you make a stand and shoot attack, even if the unit is outside of the weapon's range, you can still make that attack. So basically, instead of just one attack, it gets d6 plus 1 hits rather than one. But you do have to hit with it. But the cool thing is the Ironbreaker leader, or excuse me, not the, yeah, the Ironbreaker leader gets the weapon. He does have Ballistic Skill 3, which is a little bit of, it's on a 4 plus, right? But it has quick shot, so it doesn't suffer the penalty for standing and shooting. So it's a 4 plus. If you hit, you get d6 plus 1 hits. It's strength 5, AP minus 1 flaming attacks. It's not bad. It can definitely kill some models. Now, on the other hand, is it always going to be worth, taking? What if you miss? It's a 4 plus, is a little bit swingy. Well, I mean, that's just up to you, right? Some people would rather take the reliability of just having an extra model in the unit. Some people want the Cinder Blast Bombs. So, really depends what you're into. I personally like the Cinder Blast Bombs, but you don't really need them. It's 15 points per thing. If you wanted to shave some points and just give, the guy a brace of Drake Fire Pistols, the Drake Fire Pistols are also pretty good. It's just you lose your shield as well, which I don't really like, especially in challenges and stuff like that. It just sucks. So having some Cinder Blast Bombs, I think, wouldn't be a bad thing. But that's up to you. Now, Ironbreakers are also, protected by the shield wall ability. They are stubborn as well, by the way, guys. I mean, God, these guys are just so good. They have Grommeral armor. They have Grommeral weapons. Of course, they have the runes of protection, give them that 6-up board save against anything that's non-magical, and they have stubborn. They're just one of the best units in the entire army book. So they're really cool. I really like the unit. We're just going to leave it here. Now, for those of you wondering, well, what would we do if we wanted to go with a Lord, a Dwarf King or something, or a Dwarf Thane, but maybe, a buff Dwarf Thane that hits really hard in combat? So what you would do is you'd get rid of this Anvil of Doom right here, the 240.1. Just get rid of that, and you'd replace it with another Thane, and you would give that Thane shield bearers. Now, I know you guys are thinking, shield bearers can only be on a Dwarf King. That was in previous editions. You can now give it to a Thane. So what we do, and again, this is the list with the 2 anvils, but if you don't want to run 2 anvils, you can go with the Dwarf Thane. So, or Thane with shield bearers. Now, shield bearers are really good. They are extremely good because what they do is they allow the Thane to basically be a lord, and it's like a budget lord. So you get +3 wounds from your Thane. You get extra attacks. You get 3 extra attacks with them. At weapon skill 5, strength 4. They do have Grommeral weapons because they're elite dwarfs that are carrying the, Thane into battle. They have the movement 3 like usual, but here's the other thing. It does cost 60 points, but that's still cheaper than a king. You're still paying less points for a king, and you have +3 wounds. So you have 5 wounds, weapon skill 6, you have 3 attack space, but you're getting another 3 from the models that are, part of the shield bearer unit. And then you can kind of just use whatever you want. You can take a great weapon. If you want to go for a lord that just has a bunch of attacks, recently, if you guys haven't seen it, This isn't a build that I thought about, but it is pretty good, and it's pretty all-purpose. It's a, triple rune of, I want to say Fury. It's +3 attacks. Let's see if it's Fury. Yes, Rune of Fury. So you can take triple Rune of Fury. It's 75 points, which maxes out the Thane's number of number of points that he can take in runic items. But it does give him 6 attacks. And if you are striking with a great weapon, it's giving him 6 attacks at strength 6, the AP -2. It's pretty good. Now just keep in mind, Gromero weapons don't affect great weapons, so you actually don't get the effect of the additional -1. So just keep that in mind as well. Now, if you want him to just mow down infantry, that's definitely the way you want to go. If you want him to go after big stuff, because that's kind of the weakness of the list, in my humble opinion, then you have to go with this rune, which is, in my opinion, really, really good. So, there is a rune called the Master Rune of Dragon Slaying. And basically what it does is if an enemy unit has the behemoth, so any gorgons or giants or anything like that, if you're rolling to wound this model, you always wound on a 2+, regardless of the target's toughness. That is insane. And it's only 35 points. So if you want to specifically have something in your army that can deal with big monsters, and by the way, this type of build is, monsters want to get into combat with you. So you're going to be able to actually kill big monsters in combat with this. So you pay 35 points for this, and you get a 2+ to roll against monsters. And on top of that, you can also add more runes because you have 40 points left to spend on weapon or armor runes. So you could do the not the master rune of swiftness, because you can't have 2 master runes. But you could do the rune of cleaving, which gives you additional AP. Now you can only put it on a hand weapon, but you're probably just going to have a hand weapon anyway with that build. So you don't have to do the great weapon, but you could do the hand weapon. You're always wounding behemoths on a 2+ anyway. And with 2 of these, you're getting AP -3, wounding on a 2+. So even if monsters have like a 4+ scaly skin or something like that, you're pretty much negating their armor with each hit. Now, that is one way to go about it. The other thing to do is, if you really are kind of more into the gamble, so to speak, you do the Master Rune of Smiting. Gives you the multiple wounds D6 special rule. I just personally don't like this, but it's great on a great weapon. So if you put this on a great weapon, which will bring you up to strength 6, which is wounding most dragons and stuff like that on a 4+, maybe a 5+, then 1 wound goes through, and you can technically do a bunch of damage to that dragon if it goes through, both. It's going to probably go through armor, and if it goes through the ward save and the regen, I mean, that's just going to be D6 damage. That's pretty good. So there's a couple of different things you can do. I personally like the Rune of Dragon Slaying, but that's just me if you're going to go with this kind of build. But let's just go with this rune here. Let's just go with the 2 runes of cleaving, which gives you extra AP. Oh no, maybe 1 rune of cleaving, maybe a rune of fury, and we'll see what else. Okay, so Orthane with shield bearers. Rune, sorry, wait. Master Rune of Dragon Slaying. Right, we're just going to give him a hand weapon, no big deal. Shield bearers, and then we can give him a shield, right? So Master Rune of Dragon Slaying, so we can take on behemoths. We give him the Rune of Cleaving, which gives him AP -2 on his weapons, because remember his hand weapon has Gromero as Grommer a weapon, right? It's a Grommer weapon. I don't think. Let me just double check something real quick. I don't think it gets rid of the Grommer weapon special rule, but let's see. If it does, that would kind of suck. I don't think it does, but I want to double check because I don't want to just say that and then not, get it. Okay, never mind. Actually, okay, so I'm wrong. Grommer weapons actually doesn't apply to runic weapons, so just totally disregard what I said. Yeah, totally disregard. So we would give him the rune of cleaving to give him some AP. We'd probably give him 2 runes of cleaving here. And of course, that's pretty much all of our... This is 35 plus 30 is 65, so we have 10 more points. And I think at that point we can give him 10 points worth of maybe defensive abilities. So my vote would be for just a single... Okay, we'll give him the Rune of Stone. I don't know. Maybe we can give him the Rune of the Furnace and the Rune of Stone. So personally, I don't think that's the best build out there, but it's good for this list because it allows you to deal with behemoths. And again, remember you're getting 3 attacks that are hitting on probably a 2+ against a dragon type character. They don't have the greatest weapon skill. You have weapon skill 6, so maybe you're hitting on 3+, for example, and then you're wounding on 2+, and that's not bad at AP -2. You can do a couple wounds per turn. Or you could just simply go with a great weapon and go with a ton of attacks. So that's the other way to do it. I don't know exactly which one's better, but it would just depend on how much armor the target you're going against has. So maybe we just do this. Maybe we forget this Rune of Dragon Slaying and we just do something simple. Right? It does take up all our points. We don't get any defensive abilities, but we do have shield bearers. So Thane with shield bearers, great weapon, and 3 runes of fury. And I actually really like that build. And again, I didn't get it. I actually got it from a Morty and Glory video, believe it or not, because now he has dwarfs. So I really like that build with a Thane, so I think it's good. I think on a Dwarf Lord, you have a little bit more points to work with. There's an argument that you might want to just go with the Master Rune of Smiting, get that D6 wounds, and then on top of that, put a great weapon on him, and then put some other stuff on him, and just really just kit him out to just kill big stuff. But with a Thane, you can't really do that. So we have a great weapon, we have 3 Runes of Fury. I think that's good enough. So that's going to be 60, 120, 124, and then 124 plus 75. That's 199. So that's actually cheaper than our Anvil of Doom with the Rune of the Furnace, right? So we can actually add more stuff in our list. Maybe we add the Cinder Blast Bombs. We'll put this in parentheses. Add add Cinder Blast Bombs back into the list, baby. And then maybe we can give like the Thane an oat stone or something like that, right? Or, I don't know. But you guys get what I mean, right? Like if you were limited to only one Anvil of Doom, you could easily go with the Thane and make him just do a bunch of work in melee. So we have that. So anyway, so the last part of this video is going to be, how does this list work together? Well, the idea of the list is that the first turn you deploy kind of your Ironbreakers in the center, and you could do them in 3 ranks of 7 or 6, which would be good. You get the most amount of attacks with these guys, and you still get your rank bonuses until you take casualties. and the miners are going to be in reserve. They're going to come in later, and they're going to come in behind something and really just wreck it as far as the combat resolution goes. So big monsters and stuff like that, yes, dwarfs are slow, but big monsters, if you're rolling two basically units to, try to catch them, then they're probably going to get caught with something, right? And even if they don't, they're running, they're fleeing off the board. If they end the game like that, they're basically destroyed. So that is really good if you can break them off the board. So you have these two units in the center. Miners are coming in from behind later in the game. You have two Dwarf Warriors on the flanks. Their job is just to flank enemy units and also provide some support so that you're not flanked yourself. And you can basically deal with units like chariots or other fast-moving stuff that's going to flank you and break your rank bonuses. And lastly, your character core gives your army support. So if you're going to two Anvils of Doom, you can cast that Rune of Oath and Steel on both Ironbreaker units to make them really durable. Or if you feel like they're already durable enough to the type of thing your opponent has, you can give it to the Dwarf Warriors as well, right? +1 armor potentially and rerolls armor saves on Dwarf Warriors is really good too, right? Because they have a 4+ with the shields, they have a 4+ armor save. So that is really good also. And of course, in the early stages of the game, if your opponent doesn't have a ton of, like shooting or magic, offensive magic that is, then you don't have to use the reroll armor saves and you can just kind of use it to get them in a better position with the movement ability, which is also awesome. And by the way, I haven't even mentioned this about the Anvil of Doom, but they also have a magic missile that is 2d6 strength 4, AP -1. I think it's AP -1. Let me double check. It might be AP -2, guys. Should be really awesome. Let's see. Oops. AP -2. There you go. So that's really awesome against heavy infantry, like Chaos Warriors. If you're going against a Chaos Warrior army and they have two big blocks of those, or if they're trying to cheese you and they have like big lines of Chaos Warriors, you could easily, first of all, you could just deploy in lines yourself. But the other thing is that you could use that ability to deal some significant damage to them before they get into combat with your Ironbreakers. And then, of course, like I said, you could just absolutely unleash on them, with a bunch of attacks from your Ironbreakers. Chaos Warriors, actually, believe it or not, in close combat, they're pretty good, but your Ironbreakers are getting a 3+ armor save, again, potentially a 2+ armor save that you get a re-roll on top of ward saves of a 6+. So chances are your Ironbreakers aren't going to be losing a ton of models, and you may not win combat initially, but once those miners come in with great weapons and just swing hard on the Chaos Warriors, it's going to be really hard for Chaos Warriors to deal with that. And even if they're chosen, this army has the ability again to use flanking with these kind of units and just kind of just out attack them, just have so many attacks against them with a high strength, high amount of AP that they're going to go down. So anyway, that's the idea for the melee list. If you guys have any ideas about this list, I think there's some things that players might say, oh, well, this list is going to suck against Wind Blast and stuff like that. But I mean, actually, the Rune Lord with the Anvil of Doom should be able to get rid of Wind Blast fairly easily. Again, you have the Master Rune of Balance, and you have the Rune of Spellbreaking. And if you did have trouble in tournaments and stuff like that against heavy hardcore magic, you could tweak this list a little bit and actually add in additional runes of Spellbreaking. They're only 25 points apiece. You can actually have, I think, up to 100 points. So you can actually have another one in here if you wanted, and still be under the amount of points that you get with the Anvil of Doom, as far as its, ability to take runes and stuff like that. So you would just have to get rid of the Rune of the Furnace, which who cares, right? You don't really need the Rune of the Furnace. But anyway, so that's the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and that's what I would run if I was running a Dwarf melee build, just big bricks of Dwarf Warriors. They're really hard to kill. Your opponent's not going to be getting a lot of victory points from them. Your General is something that's going to be very hard to kill as well, just because it's durable, and you do have additional units to protect it if you need to. And by the way, if you're going against a melee list again and they're going to come at you fast, there's nothing stopping you from just staying there and holding your positions in front of the Anvils of Doom and just have the Anvils of Doom, swing with their magic missile attacks and stuff like that. You can cast multiple bound spells in a single turn. They just have to be in different phases. So the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which is the offensive one, you can cast that in addition to the armor one, the Rune of Oath and Steel. So just remember that, guys. Alright everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Again, let me know if you guys like my fantasy content or you think I'm a quack. I would really like to know what you guys think. Personally, I don't know. I haven't played a super ton of games in Old World, but I'm an old school Warhammer Fantasy player. I used to play a lot of Warhammer Fantasy, so I really know the core mechanics of the game, and I know in general what's going to be good and what's going to be competitive, because I ran with a very hardcore competitive group that just absolutely smashed me when I was in high school playing Warhammer Fantasy a ton. So, I'm kind of aware of what's good and what can be used effectively. So anyway, let me know if you like my content with Warhammer Fantasy, and I'll continue making it. If not, I'll probably do it a little bit less, just every once in a while as a fun thing. But I do want to thank also all the patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last year and a half and more. Thank you so much. And if you do want to join and support, I will leave the link for that in the description below, and it will grant you permanent access to our Discord community. I'm trying to get more fantasy players in there so we can start talking Old World, but you just got to let me know and join up because it's absolutely free. And if you want to support the channel via the Amazon affiliate links in the description or my channel store page, I'll also, of course, leave the links there for you to look at and browse as you please. Alright everybody, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.